Hello book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Nat Cat's Bookish Cafe. Today I will be walking you through kind of where I'm standing with my series reading this year. So that means series that I've completed, DNF'd, started, and finished. Alright guys, so like most avid readers, I am in the middle of quite a few series. So I thought I'd do a check-in. I'm kind of at the mid-year point, we're mostly through July, so it's not quite the halfway point, but close enough. So I'm gonna go through them in stages. I kind of have it broken up by if I started the book in before 2022 and I'm still working on it, if I started it before 2022 and finished it this year, if I started it this year and I'm still working on it, and if I started it this year and have finished it. And then of course I also have 3 series that I have decided to DNF at this point. So I will go ahead and start with the ones that I DNF'd, then I'll go through the ones that I have already finished, and then we'll go through the ones that I'm still working on. As far as the ones that I'm still working on, it is either because I have not completed the series or because the series is still not completed and therefore I haven't been able to read them all. All right, so I have 3 series that I have decided to DNF. One of them is on Kindle, and the other 2 I have, at least the first one's in physical copies, so I'll go ahead and start with those. The first one is the Lore and Lust series. This is by Carla Nicole. This is a fantasy, well, I guess it would be paranormal because they're vampires. Paranormal romance between 2 male vampires. I have read the first and second book, but have decided that I will not continue with book 3. I just wasn't super interested in the series from the beginning. I mean, obviously I was very excited to go into this series, but as soon as I started reading it, I lost interest relatively quickly. I never really got attached to the characters and therefore was not attached to their romance. I wasn't overly interested in the kind of vague side plot that was going on. And in the second book, we focused on a second couple as well that I had even less interest in. And I believe book 3 would have focused even more on a third couple. And I just, when you're not interested in the first 2 couples, you just can't add on a third couple. So I decided that I would go ahead and just stop this series. Of course, it is I believe it's indie published or self-published by a Black female author. So if you are all interested in this, I would definitely give it a try. There's a lot of people who do love it. It just didn't give me the depth that I often would prefer in my romances. The second book is a book I actually really enjoyed, and it is just a duology, but I found that I didn't really have any interest in continuing it. I was kind of satisfied with the ending, just the way it was, and that is Shanghai Girls by Lisa Lee. This follows 2 women who immigrated from China after their country was attacked by Japan. It just follows their lives as they kind of transition from having been relatively wealthy girls in China to them being relatively poor and technically orphans here in America. It's not a very happy read, but it was very engrossing, and I found I was very invested in these sisters' lives and interested in kind of their strained relationship. Obviously, they both went through a lot of trauma. The rape of Nanjing is described at the beginning of this book. There is some on-page rape in this, so just if you're interested in it, just know that going in. But it was a really moving story, and by the end of it I was relatively happy. I mean, not like happy because it was not a happy story, but I believe the second book follows one of their daughters as she goes to China because she didn't grow up with that culture, and it seems that she really wanted to go and find that, even though her parents were really reluctant to let her go because of the trauma they experienced there. But I just, from what I saw of the daughter in this book, I wasn't really interested in her story, so I've decided to just not read it. The third book I'm not going to dwell on too long. I believe it was called A Gentle Noble's Vacation Recommendation. This was a book that I believe the first 2 volumes were free on Kindle Unlimited, but then you have to start paying for it. I only read the first one and wasn't like super blown away, so when I found out like you would eventually have to start paying for it, I just decided to just, you know, drop the series. It's a manga series, and I would say it's kind of like historical, magical, sci-fi-ish. You know, I really don't remember much about it. It was kind of a flat story for my taste, so I really don't have any, you know, I really don't have any problem letting it go. All right, up next, I'm going to go over the series that I have finished. Technically, at the point of this video, I've only finished 3, but I will talk about a 4th one since I'm currently working on the last book in that series, and it will be finished by the time that I upload this video. So first I'll start with a book or a series that I started in the previous year and finished this year. It's the only one, and that is the Full Metal Alchemist series. I started that, you know, probably beginning of last year, and since there was 27 volumes, I've been working on it for quite a while, and I finally finished it this year. Absolutely had a great time with it. I read it because I a few years ago had watched the anime and really liked it. I actually tried to like rewatch it after finishing the manga, and I just couldn't do it. Maybe if I redo the subbed version instead of the dubbed, because it was their voices, and I was like, oh, I can't do it. But this follows 2 brothers, the Elric brothers, who committed a crime technically by trying to, you know, do necromancy to bring their mother back to life when they were young, and they paid really serious consequences for that. And the story kind of follows them as they try to learn how to undo those consequences. There's also a lot of corruption and war going on throughout the country. We're also following these characters called the 7 Deadly Sins that you may have heard of, who are kind of planning something evil for the country that they are in, and you have to follow the brothers as they try to save themselves along with everyone else. And you know, they meet a lot of interesting characters and things like that, and it's just a really great time. All right, the next 3 series are for series that I started and finished this year. The first one is the Raybearer series. I don't know if it's called the Raybearer series, but the first book is called Raybearer, by Jordan Ifueko. This follows our character who was raised by a mother who she called the lady, and this lady raised her kind of in isolation, and eventually tasked her to become a member of the Emperor's Council of 11, was there 11? So that she would be able to then kill him. I really enjoyed the first book of the series. I liked the found family aspect of it. I liked the mythology aspect of it. So I had a really great time. I really enjoyed our character and the surrounding characters. When the second book came around, it was rather disappointing for me, to be honest. I just didn't feel like our character was, you know, as likable as before. I felt like she made a lot of kind of dumb decisions, and I was really questioning her, you know, decisions throughout the entire book. Also felt that the ending was very anticlimactic. So unfortunately, while book 1 was really great, book 2 definitely left me wanting for more. All right, so the next series is a trilogy that I read because Mel from Mel Reads was doing a readathon where they were reading one a month. I'm really glad that she did that because I don't think I would have gone to the series quite as soon if she hadn't been, but it was a really great experience, and that is the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. So we have the first book, Jade City, then Jade War, and then Jade Legacy, which is the stubby version because it's the UK version. And this is a urban fantasy, East Asian inspired, that takes place on the island of Kekon, I believe, and we follow the siblings of a clan called No Peak Clan. And on this island, they harvest jade, which they can use to enhance their powers. Mostly their fighting ability makes them kind of faster. They can use it kind of as like a force field. They're stronger, they can jump higher, things like that, but they can also use it for healing as well. This is, jade is really coveted within the island, but throughout the series also by surrounding lands that want to use it to strengthen their soldiers for war. We follow the characters of No Peak as they go to war with a rival clan on the island, the Mountain Clan, as well as trying to make alliances with other lands so that they can kind of keep up with the times. You know, there's physical war, but there's also war within like commerce and politics. So this is a really expansive series, a lot of world building, a lot of character development. The second book, or not the second book, sorry, the third book really did a great job of tying everything together. It was absolutely intense, but also heartbreaking, and I absolutely had a great time with this series. All right, the last series is a duology. The first book is called Dial A For Aunties, and I'm currently listening to the audiobook of For Aunties and a Wedding, I believe it's called. So by the time that this video is up, I will have completed that book and therefore have completed this series. And this is a series that I started this year and will be finishing this year. For Dial A For Aunties, we follow our character as she deals with the consequences of a blind date gone wrong. Her mother sets her up with a stranger that she met online, and he ends up trying to assault her, and she accidentally ends up killing him. So in that book, we follow her and her mother and her aunts as they try to cover this up while also catering a very large wedding at this really nice hotel. The book has a lot of drama, a lot of humor. It's a really great time. There's also a little bit of romance in it, which, you know, is also featured in book 2, hence For Aunties and a Wedding. So, you know, it was a really great time. I gave the first book 5 stars, and right now I'm really enjoying book 2 as well. All right, next we're gonna go into the series that I started in a previous year and am still working on. So the first series is Aristotle and Dante discover the secrets of the universe, and Aristotle and Dante dive into the waters of the world. So I did reread this book earlier this year, but initially I had read it a few years ago, so that's why it's in this category. In this book, we are following Aristotle and Dante, who are 2 young Mexican boys. I'm trying to remember if one of them is only half Mexican, but you know, they're young Mexican boys who are going into kind of like their teen years, and they become friends. It just kind of follows them as they discover more about themselves and each other. It is a queer contemporary novel. I really loved it the first time I read it. It was one of my favorite books of all time. After the reread, I was left a little underwhelmed and a little disappointed, which is why I have not picked up book 2 yet, even though I splurged on the hard copy. I'm hoping, since this one was written so many years ago, or so many years after this one, that we'll see a lot of improvement in the author's writing, and also that it's a little bit more mature, because if you figure, you know, as a teenager, someone picked this up back in the day, and now want to read book 2, that maybe this is marketed towards either older teenagers or even, you know, young adults. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I have to admit, I'm not 100% sure what this one focuses on. I remember it possibly dealing with like the AIDS pandemic a little, which is always definitely a topic that triggers tears for me. So I'm thinking that this book will maybe touch my soul a little bit more than this one did during the reread. All right, the next book is also part of a duology, I believe, and that is How to Be a Normal Person by TJ Klune. The book that I have not read is How to Be a Movie Star, I believe is what it's called. These are companion novels, so they're following different characters. I believe the character that we're following in this book is the friend of the love interest in this book. I've been meaning to read this book for such a long time, and for some reason I'm not buying it. Like, I keep telling myself, Natalie, you have to buy the book so that you'll actually read it, but I keep not buying it. I think it's because it's, you know, like indie published or self-published, so it's like slightly more expensive, but I just need to like bite the bullet on this one and buy the book so that I actually read it, because I was actually really hoping to read it this summer, but then I didn't buy the book and then I didn't read it. But in this book we follow 2 characters. Let me see their name. Gustavo. His name is Gustavo. Oh my gosh. So we follow Gustavo. Yeah. Gustavo Tiberius, and he lives in a small town, and he's got like his routine going on. I believe he's probably like a little bit on the autism spectrum, just based off what I remember from this book. So he's really got this routine going on. He works at like a movie rental store, and one day the coffee shop that he visits every day, the woman's grandson is working there, and he is an asexual stoner, and the two of them kind of like develop a romance together. I just thought it was a really funny, really sweet book, so I'm really looking forward to following his friend, who I don't think is asexual as well. I have to admit, I haven't read that synopsis for so long, so I can't even remember what it's about, but it's a TJ Klune book, so that's all I need to know. So the next series that I put on here is the Heartstopper series. Now, I have read all 4 of the comics that have come out, or graphic novels, I should say, that have been out, and I've also, of course, seen the show. But I feel like I remember that there was going to be another graphic novel coming out, at least one more, so I said, you know, I need to continue this. I also know that there's a really short story called Nick and Charlie that goes along with the series that I haven't read. So I will try and read that soon, and hopefully there's another graphic novel, because I definitely want more. So this is one of those series where I'm like kind of caught up, but I'm waiting for more books to come out. Heartstopper, if you don't know what it's about, follows Nick and Charlie. They are in high school, and they get paired up in, I don't know what it's called. It's like this class where they like, it's something English. It's not something we have in here in America, so I can't remember what it's called. But they're paired up to kind of like work together or something in this classroom. And they become friends, and Charlie joins the rugby team that Nick is on, and the friendship turns into more. And we kind of follow their relationship and all their queer friends. And it's a really great time. All right, up next we have a series of companion novels called The Men of Halfway House, which is by Jamie Reese. This is a book, I don't remember how I stumbled upon it. I think I first heard of like book 7 because it was like newly releasing last year. And then my library ended up having only book 1 through 3. So I read those and have been reading them on my Kindle ever since. I believe I've read 5 of them so far, and so far there are 7 of them out. We are following these men who are being released from prison and going to this halfway house so that they have kind of a place where they can, you know, get reintegrated into society without just being thrown out there. So the first book follows a like he might be in construction. He does, you know, kind of like handiwork, things like that. And a man who was recently released from prison who had a inheritance from his aunt, and he has decided to use it to build this halfway house. So the first book follows the people that will eventually, throughout the rest of the series, be running the halfway house. All of these are male-male romances, and they are somehow attached to the halfway house. Either they're living there or they are in some way connected to the people there. So that's how they're all companion novels. They're just really sweet. Some of them are a little darker because they have, you know, a darker pasts. A lot of them have also been in prison because of like misunderstandings or even corruption. So they are generally, for the most part, really great guys. And it's always really great to see them get their happy ever after. And I'm really looking forward to continuing with the series. All right, so the next series is a comic series. I'm just gonna hold up volume 5 that I have here because I'm actually reading it today. So I will have finished volume 5 of Monstrous by the time this video is posted. I believe there are 7 volumes, and according to Goodreads, that's all there is. So I think this is a completed series, and I'm definitely hoping to finish it this year. This is kind of like a sci-fi horror fantasy comic that follows a young woman who has a old god within her that kind of extends from an arm that she had lost. So he kind of is an extension of her, and it follows them as people try to hunt them so that they can, you know, either study or manipulate them in that way. You see them forming kind of like allies and friends, even though they want to, you know, they feel like someone who should be very isolated. They kind of feel guilty for what they are. They feel like a monster, but the more they kind of see all these people kind of like care for them, the more they want to live despite, you know, the horrors that happen around them. So it's a series that I'm enjoying quite a bit. It is pretty gruesome, just FYI. So, you know, if you don't like gruesome art, I wouldn't pick it up, but I find it pretty confusing. So I'm not really good at giving a synopsis about it, but you know, it's a vibe, and that's what I'm here for. The nice art and, you know, the intense vibe. The next series is Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. I didn't actually enjoy this book so much. You can see one of his books right here called For Real. And this was a book that was not published through a traditional publishing house. And I absolutely loved this. And so unfortunately, when I went into his other book, The Boyfriend Material, I was left rather disappointed. I think I gave it like 3.5 stars. But he is an author I want to, you know, give another shot. It may be a little dumb to do it within the same series, considering I didn't, you know, love it that much. But I, you know, decided I wasn't going to DNF this series. So Husband Material, I think, is the next book. And I almost feel like there was a third one that was gonna come out as well. I'm not sure. But I'll probably listen to it as an audiobook to see if that'll make me enjoy the experience a little better. I just didn't really connect to the characters as much, and sometimes if you have a good narrator, it makes it a little easier to do so. I just with this one, you know, I was really invested in the relationship, and with this one I was just kind of like, if it happens, if it doesn't, who cares? Maybe I should do a reread of the first one, but honestly, I don't want to. All right, second to last book for the books that I started in a previous year and will be continuing. This is the first book of a series. Woo, shiny. Dark Rise by C.S. Becat. It's usually sitting up here. This is her new YA series. She's well known for her Captive Prince series, which is absolutely incredible. If you haven't read it, read it. But this follows Will, and he is on the run. His mother was unfortunately murdered, and he's running from the people that killed her. He ends up in this kind of like magical place, kind of one of those you walk through an archway and you're in like another kind of magical world situation, where a lot of people from, I believe, like the past are living and they're training because there is a dark force that they had killed or their ancestors had killed in the past that is supposed to rise again. So it's just about him kind of working with these people, trying to figure out, you know, why people are chasing him, what's going on with this, you know, bad person of the past. This book, I really enjoyed. You know, C.S. Becat, she has such incredible writing. She put a lot of work into this book. I mean, I'm pretty sure she said that she researched for like 10 years to, you know, properly do the world building of the story. And just even based off what's in the first book, you can really see that. I feel like it didn't quite give me, you know, everything that I was hoping for. I think this book is very much the first book of a series, you know, probably a longer series. It's definitely setting up a lot, doing a lot of the world building, letting you know what's happened in the past, kind of letting you get to know the characters and their relationships and their characteristics and things like that. So that was, you know, definitely an enjoyable experience and it has made me very excited to continue it. I don't know when the next book's gonna be. Who knows? Hopefully it doesn't take another 10 years like it took her to write this book. All right, and the last series that I have started in the past and I'm still currently working on is TJ Klune's Tales of Verenia series. You can see the majority of them starting with The Lightning Struck Heart right there. These four are all kind of like following from Sam's point of view, and then there's a collection of short stories as well, which I read. The one that I'm missing is The Damning Stone. So this is the 5th book and we're following Prince Justin and his romance. So as you can see, I got a little way into it. You can see my reactions to this in my Westport blog, which I will go ahead, or not blog, vlog, which I'll go ahead and link. I was planning on reading this in August. I did not add it to my TBR because I was thinking about this book like a week or so ago and it still made me a little queasy. So I think I still need a little bit of time to separate myself from this book and the overturning of Roe versus Wade. So if you're wondering how those are related, just check out that vlog. I talk about it there. I am, of course, wanting to read this book so badly. I have such conflicting feelings about it, but I'm definitely gonna get to it by the end of the year, and then I will have finished the series. All right, and moving on to the last category, which is books that I have started this year and have not finished. There are 10 books in this category, and we are starting with The Lord of Eternal Night by Ben Alderson. Now, I believe that it was said that there would be more books in this series. I don't see anything on Goodreads, but it is self-published, so I know, you know, it might not be as up-to-date as a series that is, you know, being traditionally published. So I'm not sure if this series is going to continue on with this couple or if it'll be like a companion series. But either way, I had a really good time with this book. We follow a witch who has magical powers. It seems like a lot of witches in this day and age are not really able to use their powers anymore. So he has been raised to take out this monster that lives in isolation in this castle or manor near the town, because the town is like required to send one person. I don't know if it was every year or something. Every once in a while they're required to send someone to this manor, and they do not return. So this time he goes ahead and he acts as a sacrifice with the goal of killing this monster, which ends up being a vampire, who you can see there. And of course it is a fantasy romance, so he starts to learn more about this monster, and starts to see that there's some bad things about the witches that he grew up with, so just reevaluating everything that he has known while falling in love with this vampire. I had a really great time with this, so I look forward to reading other books from the author, and if he writes any more within this world, I'll definitely be picking them up. So the next one, I don't know if it's really stretching it to be calling this a series. They're definitely companion novels. I think they're all part of like this, like a STEM romance companionship, and that is The Love Hypothesis. So there's like, what, 3 novellas that revolve around STEM, and then of course there's the newest novel which is coming out, which is called who knows what. I can't remember. I'll go ahead and feature it right here. There it is. That's what it's called. So of course this book, by explaining this book, it's not going to explain the series as a whole, but they're all romances, I'm assuming, that follow around women who are in science. This one we follow Olive and Adam, and he is a professor and she's an undergrad, not like under him or anything. So there's not like a weird power dynamic or anything. But it is a fake dating trope, grumpy sunshine. I absolutely loved this book, mostly because our main character, at least in my view, I don't think it really says it like out loud, but I felt like she had demisexual vibes, which I really loved seeing in the story. I thought it was really sweet, and had, made me laugh a few times. So I'm really looking forward to picking up the other books that have similar vibes to this. All right, up next we have a relatively popular hockey romance, which is called Him. This follows 2 young men who went to hockey camp together when they were younger, and during their last summer at camp they had kind of like an experience together that one of them worries kind of ruined their friendship, because they were no longer connected anymore, even though throughout college they weren't really connected anymore during their college days, but then he finds out that his friend from the past is volunteering or working for the camp that they used to go to, so he decides to work there as well so he can try and reconnect. So it's about a romance between the 2 of them. They're definitely trying to keep it like secret, because 1, they're camp counselors, and 2, both of them are wanting to go into professional hockey, and in that area there isn't, I don't think at this time there's any queer hockey players that are out, so they're trying to of course kind of tiptoe around that for their professional prospects. The next series, I believe there's 3 books in it, and I have read 2 of them, and it is called the Undue Arrogance trilogy. The first book follows a young man who has been kind of living the rich man life. He's just kind of floating through life, not being very responsible, and one day his father unexpectedly becomes very sick. His father has been keeping from him that he has cancer, and the cancer has really taken a toll at this point, and I believe has put him in a coma, causing his son to now have to suddenly take over responsibility for the company, which he's not prepared for at all. So his friend offers him the service of a butler. I guess he's a butler, who had helped his family in the past, to kind of help him kind of learn how to be, a responsible adult. There's an age gap between these 2. It's slightly BDSM-ish. I I wouldn't say that much, but they have a certain kink that the two of them do together, and I thought the book was like really hot, so you know, I had a really great time with it. The second book then follows the friend who had offered the butler in the first book, and he ends up having a romance with a masseuse that he had an awkward first encounter with. He invited him then to give him cello lessons because the masseuse is a celloist, and that one does turn into a BDSM romance. That one's not as much of an age gap though, but it is a realizing you may be interested in having sex with the same gender situation. The third book is the one I haven't read yet. I have to admit, it's kind of the one I'm the least interested in because it seems to involve Hollywood, which isn't like a environment that I'm super interested in. It's following an older actor who seems to not be getting the parts that he wants to anymore because of his age, and the younger actor who is getting the parts that he wants because the actor is hoping that the older actor will kind of train him a little bit in this part, and they're probably butting heads a little bit, but eventually I'm assuming some sort of romance comes from it. The next series is called Tempting Monsters. I believe the first one is called The Lady of Rook's Grave Manor. I absolutely love this book. You know, I went into it kind of nervous because I didn't have like really much experience with monster romances or romances with so many partners, because she has 5 partners in this. But we follow a woman who ends up working at a manor that where women service men who are monsters, and our character takes on 5 different men who she absolutely adores, and they absolutely adore her, and it's so sweet considering it's also super steamy. This is an erotic novel, so there's a little bit of plot, but their relationship is, you know, the focus of it. So I really enjoyed her and most of the men. There was a Sphinx where he was kind of like really kind of possessive and like preppy and kind of thought he was, you know, better than everyone. So it took me, didn't like him as much, started to like him more towards the end. But otherwise I just had a really great time. The second book I think came out a little bit earlier. This month, last month, maybe it came out in June. I don't remember. I feel like it's already out though. And we're following a girl who works at the theater. This is a theater that we're exposed to in the first book where women or other humans, even males, perform in front of an audience having intercourse with monsters. And so she works there. I don't know anything else that's going to happen. I don't know, you know, who she falls in love with, or, you know, how many there's going to be, but I did have a really great time with book 1. So I'm hoping to have a really great time with book 2 as well. I really hope my voice is like not leaving me because I was like, this is taking a lot of talking. So the next book is called The Heart of the Fae by Emma Hamm. This is actually a book that I was kind of disappointed in. I didn't really feel invested in the romance. I didn't feel like I got quite enough world building. This isn't like a super thin book, so the author definitely had the chance to put quite a bit of world building in here, and I feel like she didn't quite take it. There was a lot of our character like walking around, and even her doing that, I felt like we weren't really absorbing, you know, the environment or anything like that. So it was a little disappointing, but I decided I would at least give book 2 a shot, and if I don't like it, then, you know, I won't continue with the series. But I've heard really good things about it, so that's why I want to go ahead and give it another shot. I feel like with where things left off, maybe we have the opportunity to kind of like crack the world open a little bit more, and just, you know, maybe the relationship will be a little bit more believable because they barely spend any time together. So when they do get together, you're like, wait, how did we get here? But hopefully in the second book, the 2 characters get to spend more time together and we get to see their relationship become more realistic. All right, up next we have a series that I'm definitely going to be finishing this year. I've been reading kind of one a month for the last couple months or so, and I'm actually going to be reading book 3 this month here in August. And that is The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. This follows a group of teenagers who are hunting for a Welsh king who has been buried along the ley lines in this town. We are following Blue, who is the daughter of a psychic, but she herself does not seem to have psychic abilities, though she is able to strengthen the psychic abilities of those around her. And then we are following the 4 Raven boys who go to a private all-boys school within that town, and they are the ones who are looking for it. Specifically Gainsley, I think is his name, Gainsey, is looking for it, and he's kind of collected around him this hodgepodge group of characters to help him on his journey. And it's just a really great time. It's just a YA fantasy kind of magical realism novel with really stunning writing. All right, guys, 3 more books. The first one is Ninth House, which I listened to the audiobook of earlier this year. I believe the second book is either coming out or has already come out. I'm not really sure how many books are going to be in this series, but I went ahead and read this. It's like a dark academia, kind of slightly on the side of horror. Not really, but it's definitely dark academia with like a mystery aspect. We are following a character who has been through a really traumatic experience that ended with her, slightly more than a friend, being dead. And she is in the hospital, and she's approached by someone from Yale. I'm pretty sure it's Yale. If it's not Yale, I'm going to keep saying Yale, and if it's not Yale, I'm sorry. Someone from Yale who lets her know that if she comes to work for one of the houses at Yale, one of the secret organizations, the one that kind of monitors the other houses, that she will get a full ride scholarship to the school. She's a high school dropout, so she's like, you know, this is kind of my one chance to do something with my life, considering I just went through a near-death experience. I'm gonna go ahead and take it. And when she gets there, the mentor that was supposed to mentor her had disappeared the previous year, so she's kind of floundering, trying to do this all on her own. And then of course there is a murder on campus, and we follow her as she tries to solve that. The second to last series is a series that I'm gonna hopefully finish this month, and that is The Fever King by Victoria Lee. I do have the Electric Air on my TBR for this month, so hopefully I will go ahead and get to that. It's just a duology. We're following a young character. His name is Noam, I think. I feel like I always pronounce his name wrong. But he was the son of refugees who live kind of on the outskirts of this nation, which came from which is like a little part of America. We're living in post-apocalyptic America, post-nuclear war America, so there's a couple like smaller nations now within it, so they live outside of one of them because the capital, I keep wanting to say capital, the nation that they came from is very heavily suffering from a magical plague, which is killing a lot of people. They are still living in like a refugee camp or the slums at this point, and unfortunately a outbreak occurs, killing those around him. He himself survives, gaining magical abilities from this. Throughout the series, we follow him as he tries to learn those abilities and use them to kind of bring out, you know, kind of take the government down from the inside to benefit the refugees that are still dying outside of the capital or nation or whatever it's called. My throat. The last book, the last series is called Arsenic and Adobo. I'm not used to speaking this much. And this one, it is kind of like a cozy mystery in a way. We're following our main character who is being accused of the murder of her technically ex-boyfriend who died at her family's restaurant after eating their food. We kind of follow her as she interviews people and puts the pieces together to kind of try and figure out who's really behind his murder, because it definitely wasn't her or anyone in her family. This has really great family aspects. It's kind of similar to A For Aunties, which I spoke about earlier. In fact, I believe if you like this book, you should read that book. Video will already be up by the time I post that. So you should definitely check that out, because I talk a little bit more about the comparisons of those two books along with others. But I believe, even though we solved the mystery in this one, there is, I think, 2 other books in that series that I'm looking forward to getting to. I just really like the vibe of the story. It was kind of like a stress-free but also kind of intriguing storyline, and I really enjoyed the family dynamics as well, and there was also some good humor and some good friendship, and it looks like there might be some more romance in the next 2 books, so it looks like it's got a lot of stuff that I like, so I'm definitely looking forward to continuing it. We did it, guys. We're here at the end. We made it. Oh my gosh, I did not think it would take that long when I started this video. It's gonna take me forever to edit and upload. But you know, we went through all the series that I've DNF'd, that I've finished, that I've started and am continuing at this point. I will maybe do a series like this again at the end of the year or at the beginning of next year, just to kind of see how we're doing. But you know, let me know down below, how many series are you currently in the middle of, and how many series have you finished so far this year. Let me know if you saw any series on here where you're like, hey, you definitely need to get to continuing that, because it gets so incredible. Because I, you know, of course, I'm always looking to see what I need to prioritize. But as always, guys, thank you so much for joining me today and for sticking around for this probably semi-long video. And I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!